Mark had always been a quiet man. He worked at a small accounting firm in his town and lived alone in a modest apartment on the edge of the city. His life was simple, almost too simple. Every morning, he woke up, got ready, went to work, returned home, ate dinner, and watched television until it was time to sleep. There was a certain comfort in his routine, but over the years, a deep loneliness had begun to settle in his heart. While he had friends and colleagues, none of them truly understood him. They tried to set him up on dates, but nothing ever worked out. People said he was picky, but he just wanted someone who could understand him and share his quiet life without judgment. Mark's family was small. His parents had passed away when he was young, and he had a younger sister who lived in another city with her own family. She called him every few weeks, asking about his life and whether he had met anyone special. But Mark would always shrug and say, "Not yet." Deep down, he wanted to meet someone kind and loving, but the thought of going through the dating scene terrified him. He imagined endless awkward conversations, fake smiles, and disappointment. He longed for love, but he wanted it to come naturally, without all the pretenses. One evening, after another lonely day at work, Mark was scrolling the internet. He stumbled upon an article about mail-order brides. The idea fascinated him. These were women from other countries looking for partners. And many of them were genuine, kind-hearted people who wanted a family and companionship. Mark felt a spark of hope he had not felt in years. Could this be a way to finally find someone who truly wanted him for who he was, without all the social pressures and awkward dating routines? He spent hours reading stories, looking at websites, and learning about how the process worked. There were warnings, of course. Some people had bad experiences, but others had found happiness. The more he read, the more he thought this might be his chance. But when it came to making a choice, Mark felt nervous. Most of the websites allowed you to see pictures of the women before communicating with them. Mark hesitated. He wanted someone who valued personality and connection over appearance. He decided to take a leap of faith. He chose to order a bride without requesting a photo, trusting that fate would bring him someone compatible. After filling out the necessary forms and paying the fees, Mark felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Every day, he wondered who would come into his life. He imagined a gentle woman, perhaps shorter than him, with soft features and a kind smile. In his mind, she was someone he could talk to for hours, someone who could laugh at his jokes, and someone who would understand his quiet nature. He did not think much about her physical appearance beyond that. For Mark, the idea of love was more about connection than looks. His friends and colleagues noticed a change in him. He seemed happier, more alive, and less anxious. When they asked what was happening, he told them about his plan. Some laughed, thinking it was a strange idea, while others were concerned. "Be careful," his best friend said. "You don't know what you're getting into." But Mark felt determined. He had spent too many years waiting for love to come to him naturally. Now, he was taking action, and that felt empowering. As the weeks passed, Mark continued to imagine what it would be like when his bride arrived. He pictured walking into the room and meeting her for the first time, exchanging shy smiles, and feeling an instant connection. He wondered what her voice would sound like, what her laugh would be like, and how she would react to the small quirks in his personality. Every night, he lay in bed thinking about the possibilities, feeling a mix of hope and nervousness that kept him awake for hours. Mark also started preparing for her arrival in practical ways. He cleaned his apartment from top to bottom, organizing his belongings and creating a welcoming space. He bought new dishes, fresh flowers, and even small gifts to make her feel comfortable. He realized that this was more than just an online arrangement. It was the start of a real life together. He wanted to make a good impression, but more importantly, he wanted to show that he cared. Despite all his preparations, there were moments of doubt. He sometimes asked himself if he was being naive. What if the woman did not like him? What if she expected something completely different from life? What if he was disappointed? These thoughts would swirl in his mind, but he quickly pushed them aside. He reminded himself that he had made this choice intentionally. He wanted love based on personality, trust, and connection. He could not let fear stop him from taking this chance. Mark's family, though far away, became curious. His sister called more often, asking about every little detail. "Have you heard from her yet?" she would ask. "Do you know when she is coming?" Mark explained everything calmly but left out the part that he had not seen a photo. He wanted to surprise everyone, including himself. He felt that this moment should be real, unfiltered, and genuine. As the arrival day grew closer, Mark felt a strange combination of excitement and fear. He could not sleep properly, and he found himself pacing around his apartment, imagining every possible scenario. What if she was shy? What if she was confident and outspoken? What if she had habits that clashed with his own? These questions haunted him. But at the same time, they made his heart race with anticipation. The night before she was supposed to arrive, Mark could barely eat. He cleaned the apartment one last time, straightened the cushions, and lit a few candles to make the place feel warm and inviting. He thought about the life they could build together, the conversations they might have, and the laughter they could share. Despite the fear, a deep sense of hope filled him. He realized that this was more than just meeting a stranger. This was about opening his heart to someone entirely new, someone who could change his life forever. Mark also reflected on his past. He remembered the failed attempts at dating, the awkward encounters, and the moments of loneliness. He realized that all those experiences had prepared him for this. They had taught him patience, resilience, and the importance of valuing personality over appearance. He felt ready to embrace the unknown, to take a leap of faith, and to trust in the process. When he finally went to bed that night, he could not stop imagining her face, her smile, and the first words they would exchange. He wondered if she would be shy, confident, funny, or serious. He imagined small gestures, her holding his hand, smiling at something he said, or laughing at his jokes. Every thought brought both nervousness and excitement. It was as if his entire life had led to this moment, and now he was standing at the edge of a new beginning. The next morning, Mark woke up early, feeling both anxious and eager. He dressed carefully, choosing clothes that were simple yet neat. He made a small breakfast, imagining that they would share it together. He rehearsed small talk in his head, wondering how to break the ice and make her feel comfortable. Every detail mattered to him, from the arrangement of the chairs to the flowers on the table. When he arrived at the airport, his heart was pounding. He watched as people walked by, hoping to spot her among the crowd. He did not know what to expect, only that he wanted to meet her with an open heart. The anticipation was almost unbearable. Every step he took, every glance he threw at the crowd, filled him with both excitement and fear. Mark's story in this first part is not just about waiting for a bride. It is about hope, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. It is about a man who has lived a quiet, lonely life, but refuses to give up on love. It is about the moment before everything changes, the calm before the storm, the pause before destiny steps in. As he stood there, waiting, Mark could not have imagined what was about to happen. He did not know that the woman walking toward him would defy every expectation he had, that she would challenge his perceptions, and that she would become someone who would change his life in ways he could never have planned. But that moment, filled with hope and uncertainty, marked the true beginning of his journey, a journey that would test his courage, open his heart, and teach him the true meaning of love. The day had finally arrived. Mark's heart was racing as he prepared to meet the woman he had chosen, without even seeing a photo. He woke up early, as if his body knew that something extraordinary was about to happen. His apartment, which he had meticulously cleaned for weeks, now seemed more alive than ever. Fresh flowers filled the corners of the room, soft sunlight streamed through the windows, and every little detail reflected his hope for this meeting. Mark put on his best suit, a simple gray one that made him feel confident without being flashy. He adjusted his tie for the 10th time, took a deep breath, and imagined the first moment they would see each other. He pictured a quiet, gentle woman, someone who might blush at his words or smile shyly when he spoke. In his mind, this was going to be a calm, sweet, and heartwarming introduction. As he drove to the small wedding venue, a mix of excitement and nerves swirled in his stomach. He kept checking his watch and imagining what she might be doing at that exact moment. He pictured her on the plane, traveling a long distance just to meet him. He thought about her courage and commitment, and a strange sense of admiration grew within him. This woman had taken a leap of faith too, and that realization made him feel more connected to her even before they had met. The venue was modest but beautiful, decorated with soft white drapes and fresh flowers. The chairs were arranged neatly, and a small aisle ran down the center, leading to where the ceremony would take place. Mark arrived early, as he always did, to make sure everything was perfect. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, louder than the soft music playing in the background. Every step he took felt like he was walking into an unknown world, a world that might change his life forever. As the guests began to arrive, Mark noticed the quiet tension in their expressions. His friends and family had come to witness this unusual marriage. Some were curious, some were skeptical, and a few were silently judgmental. They whispered among themselves, questioning his choice. But Mark tried not to let their doubts affect him. He focused on one thing: meeting the woman who could become his life partner. And then, the doors at the far end of the hall opened. All eyes turned, and Mark's heart skipped a beat. A tall, large-built woman appeared in the doorway. She was confident, smiling warmly at everyone, and yet she looked completely different from what Mark had imagined. She was almost twice his size. Her presence filled the room, and for a moment, Mark froze. He could feel a mixture of shock, confusion, and disbelief. The crowd gasped quietly. Some guests exchanged glances, and a few whispered under their breath. Mark's mind raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. This was not the delicate, shy woman he had pictured in his imagination. This was someone bold, strong, and undeniably larger than him. For a fleeting moment, he considered walking away, thinking that perhaps fate had made a mistake. But then, the woman Elena walked confidently down the aisle. She held her head high, her smile gentle, but full of self-assurance. She extended her hand to him, and though Mark hesitated, he took it. Her touch was warm, and her eyes, filled with kindness and sincerity, met his. In that instant, he realized that this meeting was not about appearances. It was about presence, courage, and the choice to embrace the unknown. Elena spoke first, her voice calm and melodic. "I know this is not what you expected," she said softly. "I understand if you are surprised. But I wanted you to meet me as I am. I believe that love is more than what we see. I came here because I believe in connection and honesty." Mark was silent for a few seconds, trying to collect his thoughts. The words struck a chord in him. He remembered why he had chosen this path in the first place. He wanted someone who valued emotional connection over superficial appearances. He had to remind himself that the woman standing before him was brave and sincere. She had taken a leap of faith, just as he had. The ceremony began, and despite the initial shock, Mark found himself listening intently to every word. Elena's voice was steady, and she spoke with warmth and clarity. The officiant guided them through the vows, and as Mark repeated the promises, he felt a strange mix of fear and hope. This was real. This was happening, and though she was not what he had imagined physically, her presence carried a weight that no imagination could have matched. Throughout the ceremony, Mark's mind wandered, trying to reconcile his expectations with reality. He thought about how often he had relied on appearances in the past, judging people before truly knowing them, and now, he realized, that habit was useless here. Elena was unlike anyone he had ever met. She radiated confidence, kindness, and sincerity. She was unapologetically herself, and that was something he had never considered deeply until this moment. After the ceremony, guests offered congratulations, though some whispered behind their hands. Mark noticed a few raised eyebrows and unsure smiles, but he chose to focus on Elena. She laughed gently at the awkward whispers and offered thanks to everyone, her eyes always finding Mark's. In those moments, he began to sense a shift in his perception. The initial shock faded slightly, replaced by curiosity and the faint stirrings of respect. Elena and Mark walked together out of the hall, hand in hand. The sunlight bathed them in warmth, and Mark felt a strange calm wash over him. He realized that she had made this journey for him, for a chance at love that went beyond appearances. And though he had been startled at first, he began to feel a glimmer of something he had not felt in years. Hope that love could come in unexpected forms. The ride back to his apartment was quiet, filled with soft conversation. Elena spoke about her journey from her country, her dreams, and her hopes for the future. Mark listened, captivated not by her size or appearance, but by the intelligence, humor, and sincerity in her words. She told stories of her childhood, of challenges she had overcome, and of the people she admired. Mark realized that every word revealed a woman of substance, depth, and courage. Despite the growing connection, there were moments of tension. Mark occasionally felt unsure about how to act, worried about the opinions of others, and his own preconceived ideas. He wondered if he could truly accept someone so different from what he had imagined. But Elena's calm, patient demeanor eased his worries. She did not demand immediate acceptance. She simply existed in her truth, giving him space to adjust and reflect. Mark began to notice the small gestures that revealed Elena's heart. The way she laughed at his jokes, the way she reached for his hand, and the way she listened when he spoke. All of these details began to shift his perception. He realized that love was not about size, looks, or societal expectations. It was about presence, understanding, and the willingness to embrace someone wholly, without judgment. That evening, as they sat in his apartment drinking tea, Mark reflected on the day. He thought about the initial shock, the whispered comments from the guests, and the images he had imagined for so long. And yet, none of that mattered anymore. Elena was real, present, and genuine. She had stepped into his life boldly, offering trust and sincerity. And for the first time in a long time, Mark felt that love might not be as far away as he had believed. He also began to see the humor in the situation. The very thing that had startled him, the contrast between expectation and reality, was also an opportunity for growth and laughter. He realized that if he could learn to embrace this unexpected journey, he could learn to embrace life more fully. Elena's presence challenged him, yes, but it also invited him to see the beauty in unpredictability, the joy in acceptance, and the power of courage. The night ended quietly, with a sense of anticipation for the days to come. Mark knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There would be adjustments, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt, but he also knew that the foundation was stronger than he had imagined. Honesty, courage, and the willingness to take a leap of faith. Mark went to bed that night feeling a mix of relief and excitement. The initial shock of Elena's appearance had passed, replaced by curiosity, admiration, and a growing respect. He realized that the true adventure was only beginning. Meeting her had been the first step, but understanding, connecting, and building a life together would be the real test. He closed his eyes, thinking about the possibilities. Perhaps she would become his best friend, confidant, and partner in ways he had never imagined. Perhaps they would discover shared joys, face challenges together, and create memories that would last a lifetime. And perhaps, in embracing the unexpected, Mark would finally learn what it meant to love deeply, truly, and without reservation. The day had brought shock, uncertainty, and awe, but it had also brought a spark, something fragile yet powerful. A spark that hinted at a future where love was not bound by appearances, where courage and sincerity mattered more than expectation, and where two people could find connection in the most surprising of ways. And so, as the night settled over the city, Mark felt a sense of peace. The woman he had imagined so differently had arrived, bold, and sincere. And for the first time in years, he felt that love might indeed find him in the most unexpected form, teaching him lessons about acceptance, courage, and the true meaning of connection. After the wedding day, Mark and Elena began their life together. The first few days were filled with excitement, nervousness, and a lot of adjustment. Mark had never lived with anyone before, and Elena was stepping into a completely new environment, a culture and lifestyle she had only seen in pictures or heard about. Everything felt unfamiliar, yet there was a shared sense of hope that made them both eager to try. From the very first morning, differences in their habits became clear. Mark liked quiet mornings, sipping tea while reading the newspaper. Elena, on the other hand, preferred starting the day with music and singing softly while making breakfast. At first, Mark was startled by her energy, feeling it disrupted the calm he had been used to. Elena noticed his hesitation but smiled warmly, saying, "We will find our rhythm. Don't worry." Meals were another area of adjustment. Elena cooked dishes from her home country, using spices and flavors that were completely new to Mark. Some dishes were delicious, others were unusual, and took a bit of courage to try. Mark often hesitated at the first bite, but Elena laughed at his reactions and encouraged him gently, saying, "Taste it slowly. You might like it." Over time, he began to enjoy her cooking, appreciating not just the flavors but the effort and love she put into preparing every meal. Despite the small challenges, there were moments of laughter that helped ease the tension. One morning, while trying to make toast, Mark accidentally dropped the bread on the floor. Elena burst into laughter, and Mark found himself laughing too. These small, ordinary moments became important. They reminded him that life could be joyful, even in the midst of change. Slowly, he realized that the heart of living together was not perfection but understanding, patience, and a willingness to adapt. Evenings were often spent talking. Elena loved hearing about Mark's childhood, his work, and his quiet habits. In return, she shared stories of her family, friends, and the life she had left behind to be with him. Mark began to see her, not just as the woman who had surprised him at the altar, but as a person with dreams, fears, and experiences that shaped who she was. Each story, each laugh, each shared memory brought them closer together. There were moments of tension, too. Mark sometimes struggled with insecurity. He wondered if Elena felt trapped or disappointed, and he worried about what others thought of their unusual pairing. He occasionally compared her size to societal expectations, even though he tried not to. Elena noticed his moments of hesitation but never judged him. Instead, she approached him with calm understanding, saying, "We are here together. Let's focus on us, not others." Her words were gentle, yet they carried strength, reminding him to shift his focus from outside opinions to their own connection. As days turned into weeks, Mark began noticing the small things that made Elena special. The way she remembered tiny details about his day, the way she laughed at his awkward jokes, and the way she encouraged him to try new things. Elena had a way of making him feel seen and appreciated in ways no one had before. Her confidence and warmth were magnetic, gradually replacing his initial shock with admiration and affection. Their weekends became opportunities to explore together. They visited local parks, went shopping, and even attended small community events. At first, these outings were filled with awkward glances and whispered comments from strangers. Mark noticed people staring at them, but Elena handled it with ease, walking tall and smiling at those who looked. Slowly, Mark learned to follow her example, gaining confidence and pride in their relationship. These experiences strengthened their bond and taught Mark the importance of courage, patience, and resilience. One evening, Mark invited a few friends over. He felt nervous introducing them to Elena, unsure how they would react. To his relief, Elena charmed them with her warmth, humor, and kindness. She shared stories about her life, her dreams, and even her journey to meet him. By the end of the evening, Mark's friends were smiling and laughing, slowly realizing that the woman who had startled him at the altar was someone remarkable. It was a turning point for Mark. He saw how Elena's personality shone brighter than any expectation or judgment. Even at home, the pair had to navigate daily challenges. Cleaning, organizing, and managing a household together was new for both of them. Elena had her ways, Mark had his, and sometimes they clashed. But instead of arguing, they learned to compromise. Mark discovered that flexibility was essential, and Elena realized the value of patience. Through these small compromises, their respect for each other grew. They began to understand that partnership was built not on perfection, but on mutual effort, empathy, and care. One night, Mark realized something important. As he watched Elena laughing over a simple joke, he felt a deep warmth in his chest. It was more than admiration. It was a growing love. He had chosen to meet someone without knowing her appearance, thinking only of personality and connection. And now, after days of living together, he realized that love could grow from acceptance, patience, and shared experiences. Elena's size, which had shocked him at first, no longer mattered. What mattered was her heart, her courage, and the way she made his life brighter simply by being herself. Their conversations often turned to future plans. They discussed careers, hobbies, and the possibility of starting a family. Mark had once thought of life as predictable and quiet, but Elena's presence brought new energy and possibilities. She encouraged him to try new things, to take small risks, and to embrace the unpredictable nature of life. In turn, Mark offered stability, calm, and thoughtfulness, balancing her vibrancy with his careful nature. Together, they created a rhythm that blended their differences into harmony. Laughter remained a constant companion in their home. Even small missteps like spilling tea or forgetting an ingredient in a recipe became moments of shared amusement. Mark learned to laugh at himself, and Elena learned to appreciate the little imperfections that made life human. These moments of joy helped them navigate the uncertainties of their early days together, making each challenge a learning experience rather than a source of frustration. Mark also began to notice changes within himself. He felt more confident, more open, and more willing to embrace life's surprises. Elena's boldness and courage inspired him to take risks he would have avoided before. He started trying new hobbies, exploring new parts of the city, and engaging more with friends and neighbors. Life, which had once felt predictable and safe, now felt vibrant and full of possibility. Despite the growing love, there were still moments of doubt. Mark occasionally worried about how society perceived their relationship. He noticed the stares and whispers when they went out, and sometimes felt embarrassed. But Elena's unwavering confidence reminded him to focus on their happiness rather than outside judgment. "People will always talk," she said once, "but we choose how we live our lives." Her words resonated deeply, teaching him the power of self-respect, acceptance, and prioritizing genuine connection over superficial opinion. One rainy afternoon, they stayed home and talked for hours. Elena shared her fears about leaving her family and starting a new life in a foreign country. Mark shared his fears about commitment and whether he was ready for this unexpected journey. Through this open, honest conversation, they discovered even deeper trust. They realized that love was not just about joy but also about understanding, empathy, and supporting each other through uncertainty. As weeks passed, Mark noticed that the initial surprise he had felt at the altar had completely vanished. Elena's presence had become comforting, familiar, and essential. He had grown to admire her intelligence, humor, courage, and kindness. He saw her not as the woman who had startled him with her appearance, but as the partner he had longed for his entire life. Love, he realized, was far more than what he imagined. It was about connection, trust, and the willingness to embrace someone fully. By the end of the first month, Mark and Elena had built a small but strong routine. Mornings were filled with laughter over breakfast, afternoons with quiet work or walks, and evenings with shared stories and gentle conversation. Their relationship was no longer about the shock of appearances but about shared experiences, respect, and growing affection. Every day brought new lessons, small victories, and moments of joy that deepened their bond. Mark often reflected on the journey so far. The woman who had surprised him at the altar was now a source of strength, love, and inspiration. He realized that his initial expectations had been limited. shaped by years of loneliness, fear, and societal norms. Elena had taught him to look beyond appearances, to embrace unpredictability, and to value the heart over the surface. Even in the quiet moments, like drinking tea together in the evening or walking through the park, Mark felt a sense of peace he had never known. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that together, they could face anything. Their differences, which had once seemed daunting, had become a source of growth, understanding, and joy. Mark had learned something profound. Love was not about meeting expectations, controlling outcomes, or fitting into a mold. Love was about trust, patience, courage, and embracing the unexpected. And as he watched Elena laugh at something he said, he realized that the journey ahead, though unpredictable, was filled with promise. Together, they were learning, growing, and building a life that neither of them could have imagined alone. The early days of living together had been a mixture of surprise, adjustment, humor, and discovery. But through it all, Mark and Elena were creating something far more important than routine or comfort. They were creating a genuine, deep, and lasting connection. One that would grow stronger with each challenge, each shared moment, and each act of patience, understanding, and love. And so, as the days turned into weeks, Mark began to see a future that was bright, full of laughter, hope, and possibilities. Elena had become more than just a partner. She was a teacher, a friend, and a source of joy. The journey of acceptance, understanding, and love had only just begun. And already, Mark could feel that life with her was richer, deeper, and more fulfilling than he had ever imagined. Life for Mark and Elena had settled into a comfortable rhythm, but as time went on, they faced challenges that tested their relationship in ways neither had anticipated. While their connection had grown stronger through humor, patience, and shared experiences, the outside world was less forgiving. Friends, neighbors, and even distant relatives sometimes expressed judgment, questioning their pairing or making offhand remarks about their size difference. At first, these comments stung, and Mark occasionally felt embarrassed, unsure of how to respond. Elena, however, remained calm and confident. She had anticipated some of this when she arrived, and she knew that their bond was far more important than the opinions of others. "People will always talk," she reminded Mark one afternoon as they walked through the park. "We cannot control what they think, but we can choose how we respond and how we live our lives. Our happiness is ours to protect." Her words were simple but powerful. And slowly, Mark began to feel a shift within himself. He realized that love was not about fitting into others' expectations but about nurturing their own connection. The couple soon faced a more direct challenge when Mark's colleagues began to comment on Elena's appearance during casual office conversations. While some remarks were subtle, others were more pointed. Mark felt a mix of anger and embarrassment at first, unsure whether to defend her or ignore the comments. Elena, sensing his discomfort, placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Mark," she said softly, "you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be proud of us. That is more than enough." Her words encouraged him to take a stand, not through confrontation, but through quiet confidence. He realized that their life together was not defined by other people's approval but by the respect, understanding, and love they shared. Over time, he stopped worrying about whispers and sideways glances, focusing instead on the warmth and joy Elena brought into his life. In the days that followed, they encountered moments that deepened their bond even further. One weekend, they decided to host a small gathering at their apartment for close friends. Mark was nervous about the reactions he might face, but Elena reassured him, helping him prepare with calm determination. The gathering turned out to be a joyful experience. Friends who were initially skeptical saw Elena's kindness, humor, and intelligence, and by the end of the evening, many were smiling and laughing with her. Mark watched in amazement as his friends warmed to her presence. He realized that the woman who had once startled him at the altar was now becoming someone his friends admired and respected. Elena had a way of connecting with people that transcended appearances. Her confidence, warmth, and authenticity made everyone feel comfortable, and Mark began to see the importance of character over societal judgment. As they continued building their life together, they faced the usual challenges of any couple. Disagreements over household chores, differences in opinion, and moments of stress. But each challenge became an opportunity to grow closer. Mark learned to communicate his feelings more openly, while Elena practiced patience and understanding. They discovered that compromise was not a sign of weakness but a path to deeper connection. One evening, Mark and Elena sat together on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Elena leaned her head on Mark's shoulder, and he felt a profound sense of peace. "I never imagined life could be like this," he said softly. "You've changed everything for me." Elena smiled. "Life is full of surprises, Mark. Sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the greatest happiness. We just have to be brave enough to embrace them." Her words resonated deeply with him. He realized that his initial fear and surprise at her appearance had been replaced by admiration, love, and respect. The woman who had startled him at the altar was now his partner, his confidant, and his greatest source of joy. Their weekends became opportunities for exploration and shared adventure. They visited nearby towns, explored cultural events, and even tried new hobbies together. Each experience brought laughter, discovery, and moments of connection. Mark began to notice how Elena's presence transformed ordinary activities into memorable adventures. Even grocery shopping or cooking a new recipe became an opportunity to bond, laugh, and learn from each other. Despite the joy, there were still moments of insecurity for Mark. Occasionally, he worried about society's perception or whether he was doing enough to make Elena happy. Elena, sensing his unease, reassured him with gentle words. "Happiness is a choice we make every day," she said. "It's not about appearances, judgments, or perfection. It's about love, patience, and understanding." Her perspective gave him clarity and strengthened his resolve to focus on what truly mattered, their connection, and the life they were building together. As months passed, Mark and Elena began to plan for the future. They talked about their dreams, including travel, hobbies, and possibly starting a family. Each conversation brought excitement and careful consideration. They learned to balance practicality with imagination, creating a shared vision of life that included both stability and adventure. Their discussions were filled with laughter, mutual respect, and the occasional debate, each moment deepening their understanding of each other. One afternoon, Mark suggested they create a small garden on the balcony. Elena loved the idea, and together they planted flowers, herbs, and vegetables. The garden became a symbol of their partnership, requiring care, patience, and attention. Watching the plants grow mirrored their relationship. They had nurtured it with effort, patience, and love, and it had blossomed into something beautiful and resilient. Their relationship also became a source of inspiration for those around them. Neighbors and acquaintances began to notice the respect, laughter, and warmth that filled their home. Elena's confidence and kindness, combined with Mark's thoughtfulness and patience, created a visible energy that drew people in. Slowly, the whispers and judgment faded, replaced by curiosity and admiration for the life they were building together. Mark often reflected on his journey, from the lonely man who had scrolled the internet, hoping for love, to the man sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset with Elena. He realized that every step had taught him lessons about courage, patience, acceptance, and the unpredictability of life. He had learned that love was not about meeting expectations but about embracing the unexpected and valuing connection above all else. Elena, too, reflected on her journey. She had left her family, country, and comfort zone to be with Mark, stepping into an unknown world with courage and trust. She had faced judgment, cultural differences, and the challenge of adjusting to a new life. Yet, through patience, understanding, and humor, she had built a life filled with love and warmth. She felt proud of the life they were creating together and grateful for the bond they had nurtured. One quiet evening, as they sat together sipping tea, Mark took Elena's hand. "I was scared at first," he admitted. "But now I see that everything, the surprise, The adjustments, the challenges has led me to something I never imagined. You've made my life fuller, happier, and more meaningful than I ever thought possible. Elena squeezed his hand gently. And you've shown me that love is about patience, kindness, and understanding. Together, we can face anything, and our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Over time, Mark and Elena's life continued to grow richer with shared experiences, small victories, and the occasional challenge. They learned to celebrate their differences, laugh at their mistakes, and cherish their shared moments. Their bond deepened with each passing day, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and the willingness to embrace life together fully. They also realized the importance of community. While judgment and whispers had been present at first, they found allies among friends who saw the genuine connection they shared. These supportive friends became part of their extended family, offering encouragement, companionship, and moments of shared joy. Mark and Elena learned that surrounding themselves with positivity strengthened their relationship and allowed them to thrive despite any negativity from the outside world. As the years passed, Mark and Elena grew closer than ever. They celebrated anniversaries, milestones, and small daily achievements with laughter, gratitude, and affection. Their life together became a testament to the power of courage, patience, and love that transcends appearances. Mark had once feared the unknown, but now he embraced it, knowing that life's surprises often bring the greatest rewards. Mark also began to notice subtle changes in himself. He became more confident, empathetic, and open-minded. He learned to appreciate humor, adventure, and spontaneity, qualities Elena brought into his life. He realized that love was not static. It required growth, adjustment, and a willingness to embrace change. Elena had shown him that true partnership was about supporting each other, celebrating differences, and facing life together with courage and joy. Elena, in turn, found strength and comfort in Mark's steadiness. His thoughtfulness, calm nature, and genuine care provided a foundation for her to thrive. She realized that their union was not just about romance, but about partnership, friendship, and shared growth. Together, they had built a life that honored both individuality and connection. A life rooted in love, trust, and resilience. One memorable afternoon, Mark and Elena hosted a small community gathering in their apartment. Neighbors, friends, and colleagues came to see them, sharing food, laughter, and stories. People who had once been skeptical now expressed admiration for the bond they had nurtured. Mark and Elena watched with quiet pride, knowing that their love had not only survived challenges but also inspired those around them. Reflecting on their journey, Mark often thought about the day Elena had arrived. He remembered the shock, the uncertainty, and the fear he had felt. And yet, every step since that day had brought lessons, growth, and a love deeper than he could have imagined. Elena had transformed his life in ways that went beyond appearances, teaching him that true connection is built on trust, understanding, and acceptance. As the story of Mark and Elena reached this stage, it was clear that their journey was more than a tale of unexpected romance. It was a story of courage, patience, and resilience. It showed that love is not about meeting societal expectations, conforming to appearances, or avoiding challenges. True love, as they had discovered, is about embracing the unknown, valuing character above all else, and nurturing a bond with kindness, respect, and shared effort. And so, Mark and Elena continued their life together, facing each day with courage, joy, and gratitude. They celebrated their differences, cherished their shared moments, and built a home filled with laughter, warmth, and love. The woman who had surprised him at the altar became his partner, friend, and inspiration. Together, they had proven that love, when nurtured with patience, understanding, and courage, can flourish in the most unexpected and beautiful ways.